is magnificent.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Welcome to Fantasy Baseball. Today it is Tuesday, August 3rd. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Scott White. Frank Stampfel still on vacation for the rest of the week. And we've got a much less busy show for you today than we had yesterday. Not quite as much happened on Monday as did over the weekend. And that's fine because that's going to allow us to get into some Dynasty updates. Scott's going to have a piece up on cbssports.com/fantasy hopefully by the time you read this, right, Scott? Talking about some dynasty risers, dynasty fallers, and just updating the dynasty landscape and dynasty rankings with the, really the 3/4 mark of the season pretty much here. I guess the 2/3 mark.
2/3, yeah.
Classic
Not quite to 3/4 yet. Give it a couple more weeks. We'll be at 3/4.
I mean, it's, 1/12 away.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's right. I think the math works out on that.
Need the common denominator. Find the common denominator.
Yeah, that's 12. 1 out of 12.
Okay.
I think it's just 1/12, which is half of 1/6.
I'm not good at thinking of words and thinking of numbers at the same time. It's just,
that's fair. It's a good thing you don't have to deal with any of those things at the same time in your chosen profession. Also on today's podcast, in addition to Dynasty Updates, we've got some bullpen updates with all the changing roles coming out of the trade deadline. We're going to talk about some of Monday's biggest performances. Your listener emails at fantasybaseball@cbsi.com is where the emails go if you want to send them. Again, that's fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. But we'll start with some of the big news today, and starts with two high-profile players, arguably the two best players at both starting pitcher and relief pitcher, or the best player at starting pitcher and relief pitcher. Going on the COVID IL, Gerrit Cole will not start Tuesday for the New York Yankees after testing positive for COVID. And Josh Hader was placed on the COVID-19 IL on Monday as well after another positive test. So Brewers have had something going around in their clubhouse, it seems. Christian Yelich hoping to come back from the COVID IL on Thursday. The Yankees also have had some guys on the IL. So this is, it kind of is what it is. This is still an issue. It's still, going around the country with the Delta variant. It's, hopefully not going to decide your fantasy season, but this is definitely something to keep in mind over the next couple of weeks. Christian Yelich went on the COVID IL last Tuesday, and he's eligible to come back, I believe, on Thursday for the first day. So, if Gerrit Cole and Josh Hader follow the same, timetable, and that's dependent on a number of factors, we may not see them until the middle of next week. So
I was trying to see if there were updated policies in the MLB for, testing positive, but you're vaccinated and you don't have symptoms. Because I believe in the NFL, you actually pointed this out to me on Twitter. In the NFL, if you test positive, but you're vaccinated and you don't have symptoms, you can come back in 24 hours, right? But it's still,
if you
it's
have
still
a
a minimum
test.
Oh, you still have to get, get the negative test. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So 10 days, 2 turns, presumably is what Cole's going to miss.
We were talking about Max Scherzer and whether he's the number one starting pitcher in fantasy. Gerrit Cole missing 10 days might be enough to tip in Max Scherzer's favor, given how little of the season is left.
Only 1/3.
Yeah, this is 4/12. There's not really much you can do here if you already started them this week. That's unfortunate. Hopefully your league will, maybe allow you to make some changes. I know some of my fantasy football leagues allowed that. I don't know. We did in basketball too. I don't know if any of my baseball leagues have had any policies like that, but not much to take away from it other than Josh Hader and Gerrit Cole likely will not be helping you at least the rest of this week as a result of their positive tests. Hopefully, everything's okay coming out of that. Let's move on to Monday's oh my goodness gracious players of the day. Scott, can you hit me with your best Susan Waldman impression again?
Oh my goodness gracious!
I like it. Thank you.
You like it? Does it work?
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
works.
Okay.
So who's your pick?
My pick is actually somebody who didn't play on Monday and hasn't played for a
Oh,
very long time, but
interesting.
it's definitely the item that made me say, "Oh my goodness gracious," and that is Adalberto Mondesi.
Yeah.
And what general manager Dayton Moore of the Royals revealed about Mondesi as per their 2022 plans for him. They're not even talking about rest of this year. Just what are they planning to do with Mondesi next year? And it sounds like they're not counting on him to be an everyday player. It sounds like they've come to the determination that they need to manage his workload, and 100 games was a number Dylan Moore identified as a potential target for Adalberto Mondesi, which is less than 2/3 of the season. A little quick math there while I was thinking of words.
Yeah, it's about 1/12 less than 2/3 of the season.
So that stinks.
Yeah,
Stock way down. Maybe he should be in my dynasty risers and fallers.
I think he probably should be. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Adalberto Mondesi that, one of the things I talked about certainly a lot this offseason was just how, buying into injured players can be one way to gain value in fantasy. And one of the reasons for that is just that, everything that we talk about is so based in concrete facts and data and numbers. And injury analysis often isn't. And, anybody who's been following Mondesi's major league career knows he's missed quite a bit of time. He's only had one season with more than 100 games played in the majors. But he's had injury issues basically his entire career at every point. You go through and he's played more than 100 games in a season, including the majors and the minors, I believe only 3 times. So 4 times, excuse me. And he's been a professional since 2012. So there does seem to be something there with him.
I wonder if he means just for next year, and if he proves he can handle this 100 games with more rest built in, if they can then broaden the playing time from there for Mondesi. But I don't even know how many more years they're controlling Mondesi. He's a few years into his career at this point.
He's a free agent after the 2023 season.
Okay, so a couple more years. Yeah.
The way I took it was, they're going to build in extra rest for him next season, and they'll probably have to make sure they have another, middle infielder or, whatever position they try him at, or they decide to play him at. They'll have to have another one. Bobby Witt, presumably. But I would guess they're going to
presumably Mondesi's only playing 3 or 4 games a week.
Yeah, I mean, I would think at first. It seems like the kind of thing where if Mondesi's healthy and playing the way they know he can, it's hard to see them actually keeping a 26-year-old out of the lineup that often. So I think it's more like you have to prove we can trust you at this point. That's the way I took it, at least.
Well,
obviously, I'm not Dayton Moore.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that he was putting definite numbers.
Yeah.
Let me see the exact quote. We're learning that we're going to have to manage his workloads in ways that he may not be a guy that plays more than 100 games. We can't count on him as an everyday player. I mean, I guess there's some gray area in there, but I don't know.
You usually don't hear that. The Twins aren't saying that about Byron Buxton.
I think even in a roto league, like round 15 or maybe something for Mondesi, not that high. Not that high for me.
Yeah, it's fair. It's going to be hard to overlook the kind of upside he could have even in 100 games. I mean, the nice thing is I guess we have an example of what that would look like. He stole 43 bases and hit 9 home runs in 2019 in 102 games. Last season, he did only miss 1 game. It's worth pointing that out. But yeah, I think as you're looking long-term, Adalberto Mondesi, this season, we still have questions about how good he can actually be as a hitter. And we have questions about whether he can stay in the lineup. So clearly the Royals share those concerns, and that's not great for my, oh my goodness gracious player. I'm going to go with Ty France. Went 3 for 5 with a home run, 3 RBI. Scott, I know you were a big fan of Ty France coming into the season, and I don't know if he's necessarily lived up to your expectations, but I will say, he's been, I think, better than his overall numbers indicate, because he's basically hit 290 in every month except for May. He had like a 190 average in May. He dealt with some injuries there. Other than that, he's been that high average guy with a little bit of pop that I know you were hoping he would be. What do you think about Ty France right now?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't lived up to my wildest expectations for him, but it would be hard to say he's a disappointment. You pointed it out already, but just to put precise numbers on it. So basically, he hurt, I believe it was his wrist or forearm, something in that area at the end of April, and played through it for about 2 weeks. His batting average plummeted from 325 to 229. Went on the IL finally. Since coming back, and we're talking what? We're talking 60 games now with tonight's.
Yeah.
Tonight's numbers aren't included in this line, but since coming back for that long stretch of time, 298 with an 814 OPS, 7 home runs in 225 at bats. So not much power, but not zero power either. But this does further the idea that he's just a really stable source of batting average. And, maybe not all that different from like Jeff
Ryan
McNeil.
Reynolds. Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, that's a good one too.
So that I'm to the point now with Jeff McNeil where I don't think of him as really like a must-start player in fantasy either. But
sure,
just kind of not a bad option if you don't have a great one.
All right, let's move on to some of the injuries, news, and notes from Monday's game. We'll get an email of the day after that. But first, Joe Adell was recalled from AAA Salt Lake. It's actually kind of funny. I tweeted yesterday after, I believe he had 3 straight games with a home run, has an OPS well over 1,000 since the start of July. And I called the Angels out and said that it was clear service time manipulation that he wasn't in the majors. And so, of course, they called him up the next day. They got scared. You're welcome, Joe Adell. Please send me a portion of the major league paycheck. He's having an excellent season at AAA Salt Lake. He was hitting better than Brandon Marsh. I know there have been concerns about the strikeout rate. But 289, 342, 592 is the triple slash line. 23 homers, 8 stolen bases. Yes, he has struck out 29% of the time, which is a concern, especially given how poorly he played last season and how overmatched he seemed. But
over 40% strikeout rate during those. He was up for most of the 2 months.
Yeah, he's like 150 days of service time because they extrapolated it out. But this is a guy who's been a top 20 prospect in baseball for basically 3 straight years. Even after he struggled last season, it didn't really impact his standing in the prospect list where he was still eligible. He did exhaust his rookie eligibility, but some prospect lists still considered him. He has only played 297 games in the minors. So that's basically 2 full seasons worth of games. He's dealt with some injuries, obviously last season with COVID. But if you just cut his numbers in half and give him 150 game pace, here's what you're looking at for his minor league numbers. 29 homers, 106 RBI, 118 runs, 19 stolen bases at a really high success rate, 295 average. Strikeouts, again, have been an issue, but there's big upside here. We've talked about it for 3 years now. We were talking about him as someone who could get called up back in 2019. So is Joe Adell a must add in any 5 outfielder league?
Yeah, I'd say 5 outfielder. I mean, I would say the odds are against any particular prospect call up at this point after what's happened with Kelnick, to a lesser extent what's happened with Wander Franco. I mean, those guys seemed as can't miss as it gets. And of course, the list of ones beneath them, Jarren Duran, I could come up with so many names. They've all disappointed us to the point that I think any particular prospect call up, you have to presume failure, which, was the standard for these guys 5 to 10 years ago anyway. I just think we're kind of back there right now. So pick up Adele, not expecting much, but the upside is huge.
It is worth noting he's one of the rare prospects who didn't lose playing time in 2020. Whether that's a good or bad thing, given how he played, is a different question. But at least he got the reps.
Yeah, I'm not sure that totally explains what's going on anyway, because it's not like the guys are struggling in the minors themselves.
Sure, but they're going against guys who didn't play. So
yeah, I don't know. I think there's something else going on there, but that's anyway.
Maybe it's a Space Jam thing.
I kind of feel like the Angels were waiting to see some kind of strikeout improvement from Adele, and last 25 games he was especially hot. 363, 7 home runs, OPS over 1,000. Most significantly, though, might be 24.5 strikeout rate during that stretch, which is much more palatable than 30 against minor leaguers. And he's young and he's inexperienced even for a minor leaguer. And, I think back to like a George Springer who struggled with strikeouts in the minors, and then eventually it became kind of a non-issue for him. Chris Bryant, same way. So it's not like he can't continue to improve in that regard. I just think I just think he was so bad last year that like it kind of gave him an even bigger hurdle to clear. And
sure.
He hasn't cleared it yet, obviously, because it'll take him doing better in the majors. But
getting the confidence back after struggling like that, that's really the first time in Joe Adele's career as a baseball player where he's struggled like that. So, there's always something to that. Additionally, as a result of this, it sounds like Justin Upton could start sitting against right-handed pitchers with Adam Eaton playing more. But the expectation is that Adele's going to play every day.
Yeah, that seems to be the expectation. I don't know why Adam Eaton still deserves the bats over Justin Upton. I don't get the thinking behind that, but if you had been
better impressed,
Upton had been decent when healthy this year. Good for 5 outfielder leagues, so that's kind of disappointing.
Yep. All right. The rest of the news and notes: Rhys Hoskins did return to action today. He was available as a pinch hitter, struck out. Not sure he's going to play tomorrow, but at least he's. It doesn't seem like he's going to go on the IL. As you mentioned earlier, Christian Yelich could be cleared to return Thursday. He'll have testing done before he can return on Wednesday. Brandon Nimmo was a late scratch. He was initially in the lineup for the Mets, was scratched, missed his 3rd straight game with a hamstring. DJ LeMahieu was back in the lineup, and the Yankees had Judge at DH and Stanton in right field. So I believe is that 3 or 4 appearances in the outfield now for Giancarlo Stanton, including in an AL park. So, if you're hoping for a little added flexibility for Giancarlo Stanton, it could be coming. Yeah. And we did have an email. This is not the email of the day, but it's going to get read first from Henry. Do you think it's worth trying to buy low on Stanton? He's played a couple games in the outfield recently, could pick up outfield eligibility. Henry saying, I lost Acuna. I've been looking for outfield help. Picked up Grossman, Harrison Bader, and Andres Jimenez? Who would that be? Jimenez.
Eloy?
Okay, yeah. Stan is slumping and injury prone, but could be helpful down the stretch if he heats up things in advance. What do you think about Stan? Would you be trying to buy low on him right now?
I mean, it depends on how low. I think he's better than he's shown so far. When he's healthy, usually good things happen. He's healthy right now. He would start for you, but like a starting outfield of Eloy Jimenez, Robbie Grossman, and Harrison Bader doesn't sound bad to me either. Stanton, it certainly would help to have him. It just depends what you're giving up.
Yeah, one thing we've seen with Stanton is he's still hitting the ball incredibly hard. 100th percentile on average exit velocity, max exit velocity, hard hit rate. Has the highest average exit velocity of his career. He still crutches the ball. Striker rate, still 29%. Not great. Not so bad that you would think it's, a hugely limiting factor. His sprint speed has fallen from 55th percentile in 2019 to 24th last year to 11th. And, maybe that's the result of him not playing outfield and not having a lot of competitive runs because he's either striking out or hitting a home run. But that's a bad sign. If you're looking for a reason why a guy who hits the ball as hard as Stanton does, might struggle, losing a couple of extra, singles and potentially doubles because the infield can play back. That is one thing that we could be seeing from him as he, reaches his, early 30s. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I do think Stanton would be worth buying low on. If you can get him for the right price, because he's obviously capable of, an 8 home run month at any time. Rangers designated David Dahl for assignment. That is a frustrating outcome for a guy who, they were certainly hoping he could have a bounce back after dealing with injuries. He's dealt with injuries this season, and I think he might have an OPS under 600 right now. So tough stuff for David Dahl. Andrew McCutchen was placed on the IL with the knee injury that he left Saturday's game with. Jake Fraley returned from the COVID IL, went 2 for 4 with 2 RBI. Did he also steal a base in this one? I'm trying to remember. Yep, stole a base. I kind of like Jake Fraley. I don't think he's a star, but like really good plate discipline. He'll swipe a couple bases. I think he's kind of useful in a roto league. So someone to keep in mind. Evan Longoria could go on a rehab assignment this week. I always do the Evan Longoria thing with him. I always call him Evan Longoria.
I have never done that before.
Chris Archer left his rehab start after 1 inning pitched. He's coming back from thoracic outlet syndrome surgery, but he left with a hip injury. Stephen Brault will make a season debut for the Pirates up versus Milwaukee on Wednesday. Chad Cole was placed on the COVID-19 IL for the Pirates. Spencer Howard looks like he's going to make his first start for the Rangers on Thursday. He could be piggybacking with Taylor Hearn. Obviously, given the way that the Phillies used him or, didn't really use him a lot of the time in Philadelphia this season, you'd prefer to just see him used as a regular starter. The Rangers, yeah. I'd like to see them give him a sink or swim opportunity here over the last month and a half, 2 months of the season.
Yeah, I think the reason he's having to, or at least the tandem possibility is being presented here, is because he's just not stretched out to be used like a full starter yet. But yeah. I would say, apart from obvious park factor situations, like if we're just talking purely change of scenery, take him out of this scene, put him in that scene, and see what happens. Like from the trade deadline, I think Spencer Howard is the best candidate for that, because it just seems like the Phillies just were not all in with him ever.
And for what it's worth, the Rangers have had decent success, with, it's been more veteran bounce back guys, but, they've had a pretty good track record lately with that. So that's worth keeping in mind, at least. Alex Bregman was scratched from Monday's lineup on his rehab assignment after leaving Sunday with a hamstring injury. He was initially in the lineup, so I think that's a good sign that this isn't considered a serious injury, but, obviously puts his potential return on a little bit of a delay. Huascar Ynoa threw 51 pitches in his first rehab start. Remember, he is coming back from a fractured hand, and he was pitching really well before the injury. A lot of strikeouts, was kind of doing a Dinelson Lamet impression. Throws really hard, throws mostly sliders and fastballs. So someone to keep in mind if he is available in your leagues, presumably could be back in the Braves rotation within a couple of turns. And Gio Urshela will be placed on the IL with a hamstring injury after missing 4 games. So he'll be out at least a week, and possibly longer. Hamstring injuries obviously can be a lingering issue. So we'll see if, when Luke Voit is healthy enough to return, maybe he'll be able to get in the lineup at least before Urshela. And
just play him at third base. It'll be fine.
Once that would happen, if that did happen, I mean, you could play LeMahieu at third probably. If and when that did happen, let's say, Voit is the kind of player who could get so hot that they can't justify taking him out of the lineup.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, that's something to keep in mind. If he plays DH and gets really hot, that could end up working out for the Yankees. We are going to get to the rest of Monday's news. We're going to get to the email of the day. We're going to get to Scott's Dynasty updates. But first, a quick break. And it was a quick break. We're back. Let's go with the email of the day. Before we get to Monday, before we get to the Dynasty update stuff, this isn't really about anyone who pitched on Monday, but we did reference Yu Darvish in Monday's podcast. So I thought this was an interesting email worth bringing up. Again, if you want your emails read on the show, fantasybaseball@cbsi.com is the way to do it. Andrew writes in, hey guys, would you mind touching on Yu Darvish? He's been a disaster since the sticky substance ban went into effect. Not sure how to look up spin rates, etc., but he's given up 2 home runs to opposing pitchers in the past few weeks. LOL. In 5 starts in July, this is Andrew still. He has a 6.43 FIP and a 4.37 xFIP prior to July. 2.44 ERA, 3.05 FIP, 3.72 xFIP. That's actually, the xFIP between, this is me talking now, the xFIP difference between June and pre-July and July, only about a half run. So that is kind of surprising given that, Darvish was considered an elite pitcher there. Was his early season success more of a mirage, is what Andrew asks. Is he really just a 4 xFIP guy moving forward? And he's wondering if he should try selling him to someone who believes he's going to bounce back to ace levels. What do you think about Yu Darvish right now, Scott?
I'm not that concerned. It would be hard to say his success early this year was a mirage because his success goes back to the second half of 2019, where he was basically the best pitcher in baseball for that stretch and obviously dominated in the 12 starts last year as well. I think he's just kind of lost it and is finding it right now. His spin rates, for what it's worth, are down quite a bit since the crackdown began.
Yes.
That he's hardly unique in that way. So I'm not sure how much to attribute the struggles to that. I'm thinking not much, but it's possible it's having more of an effect than I'm giving it credit for. I think, part of the issue is he's a 6-pitch pitcher at least.
Yeah.
And when you have that many weapons at your disposal, I mean, it can be a great thing when they're working right and when you have a good feel for what you have a good feel for. But I think it's easier to get lost when you have that many to choose from and you're just trying to find the right combination. And we've seen it from Yu Darvish at times previously in his career. So, a long track record of success here. I'm not that worried in the long run, but obviously there is a reason he's struggling. That's my guess for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think the fact that he has so many pitches, if the baseball suddenly changes, and we kind of saw this with that 2019 season where, he got off to a really bad start. The control was really bad for Yu Darvish, and we were wondering whether he was kind of done as a fantasy option in the first half. If he was using sticky substances, the anecdotal evidence with the spin rate suggests that, it's not an unfair thing to wonder. That could make things harder when you got that many pitches. So, it could just be that the margin for error is relatively slim. But yeah, I'm mostly with you. I think he's going to be fine. Like, his whiff rates are mostly where they've been. They've kind of fluctuated a little bit, but the whiff rate on the cutter is actually up since the start of July. The whiff rate on his curveball is also up. So I don't think there's too much to be concerned about. And the other thing I would point out is, in certain ways, xFIP is kind of a cruder version of what xERA is going to do, is trying to do, which is just trying to define what a pitcher should have earned based on, normalizing their batted ball results. And so xFIP tries to pin everyone to a specific home run to fly ball rate and assuming that that's something that a pitcher can control. And when, there's fluctuations in home run to fly ball rate, that's generally out of a pitcher's control. xERA is a more elegant version of that. It actually takes how hard the ball's been hit, where it traveled, how far it traveled, etc. into account. And he still looks pretty much as good as ever by that measure. He has a 3.14 xERA this season and a 3.48 ERA. So, I think there's, sure, you're a little bit concerned about Yu Darvish, but it doesn't seem like something to panic about. So with that being said, let's do a little Dynasty update. Scott, let's talk about 5 players who, when was the last time you did a Dynasty update?
It may have been as long as 2 months ago.
Okay.
Other things kept happening, putting
Sure.
it off.
You're a very busy guy. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, so 5 on the rise. Who we got?
All right. Now, let me just preface this because you're going to say, well, duh, to these names. But, we're thinking from a dynasty perspective, and patience is the expectation in a dynasty league, right? You're thinking the long run. You don't want to give up on a talented player too soon. So just keep that in mind. I would say that since the last dynasty update, the players who have improved, the major league players who've improved their value the most are Matt Olson, Brian Reynolds, Willie Adamus, Patrick Sandoval, who of course we've talked about a lot recently, and Jonathan India. Those are my 5 big risers in dynasty leagues. Some interesting facts about these guys. Now, Matt Olson, I've kind of been expecting all this time the strikeouts to go up to back to what we're used to seeing, a 25 to 30% rate. His strikeout rate has actually gone down every single month. It started at like 17% in April, 16, 15, 14 in July. So that trend is not going to continue, obviously. His strikeout rate's not going to keep falling every month. But at this point, I just think, he's not that big strikeout guy anymore. And if that's the case, he suddenly looks a lot like Cody Bellinger did when he was winning MVPs, So forget dynasty for a second, talking redraft. I think Olson's going to be in this discussion, barring a collapse year over the final third of the season, of course. I think he's going to be in the discussion for, I'd probably put him in round 3, but I bet there will be some people arguing for him in round 2.
Yeah, if he's really a 20% or less strikeout guy,
it's like 16% for the season.
Yeah,
so that's significantly better than 20 even.
That removes, because the biggest thing I've always said about him was just that this is a player archetype that while Matt Olson can be a very good version of, it's not that hard to find. There's obviously some of them have busted this season. I argued Pete Alonso would be better than Matt Olson. That hasn't been the case yet, although Pete Alonso has been very good recently. And actually, this has gone under discussed, but he's cut his strikeout rate massively too. He's under 20% this season.
Yeah.
Hasn't had quite the same breakout as Olsen, but that could be a leading indicator that, what we're seeing so far over the last month is real. The biggest thing for Matt Olson, though, is he is crushing lefties. And it's not like he's got some huge BABIP against them. It's that he's really, really improved his plate discipline against them. He's got a 21.1% strikeout rate against left-handed pitchers this season. He's got a 1056 OPS. So has a better ISO by 130 points against lefties than righties. It's been, pretty remarkable. Obviously, we're dealing with small sample sizes. Last season, he struck out 37% against lefties. In 2019, let me get the drop-down box. It was 24% against lefties. It was actually slightly lower than against righties. So I still have my doubts about whether he can truly be a very good hitter against lefties, but based on what we're seeing right now, he looks like, 1, a completely different hitter, and 2, one of the best hitters in baseball.
Other things to point out here, Willie Adamus. I mean, we've certainly talked about it before, but it bears repeating. A completely different player since leaving Tampa Bay, and in a way that should have been predicted. I didn't notice it until he got traded. I don't know why, but his career home away splits, just how he was always a completely different player out away from Tropicana Field. So, I'll read you the career numbers right now. Obviously, they include his time with the Brewers, which it's pales in comparison to the time spent with the Rays. But career hitter at home, so mostly Tropicana Field, 217 batting average, 644 OPS. Career numbers on the road, 304 batting average, 896 OPS. So about 100 points up on the batting average, about 250 points up on the OPS. And we've since learned that he had trouble with the batter's eye at Tropicana Field. It wasn't just a fluky thing.
And to put an even finer point on it, here's what he hit at Tropicana Field. 217, 275, 341 was his triple slash line. So 616 OPS, 194 strikeouts in 622 plate appearances. That's about 28%. 16 home runs in about a full season. Yeah, he was bad at Tropicana Field in a way that he basically wasn't everywhere else.
He was awesome everywhere else. He was like an early round shortstop, and I don't know why I didn't notice that before, but now every game's a road game for him. Now that road version is playing everywhere, and of course Milwaukee is a great place to hit. So other end of the spectrum there.
He hasn't been that good at Milwaukee. He has a 789 OPS at Milwaukee.
Hopefully it's batter's eyes okay.
Only a 254 BABIP though. I think that probably explains it because he's still got it's like a 25% strikeout rate, which is not as good as his overall strikeout rate since the trade, but much better than it was in Tampa. So I do think we're clearly seeing a much better Willie Adamus, and I think that explanation makes perfect sense.
And like Adamus was a big prospect. He was somebody who you were excited to have in dynasty leagues leading up to his promotion, but he had been up for so long and underperformed for so long that, we kind of written him off as a dynasty asset. He's still only 25. He's got his whole career ahead of him still. So yeah, stock way up for that guy in dynasty in particular. I want to talk about Patrick Sandoval a little more. As was mentioned on yesterday's show, his swinging strike rate would now rank first among all qualifiers. Worth noting, Jacob deGrom himself is not a qualifier. He would actually rank first among all qualifiers if he was. But the point is, elite.
If the only person better than you would be Jacob deGrom if he qualified, I think you're doing fine.
And specifically, the changeup and slider both look like elite pitches for Sandoval. Like the kind of whiff rate he gets on each of those two pitches, like it's rare for even the best pitchers to have a whiff rate that good on one pitch, much less two. The ceiling is so high for this guy. It's really just about beating the walks at this point. But even with the walk rate he has, you're looking at right at a 3 ERA since he moved into the rotation. Obviously with a ton of strikeouts. So, I mean, Sandoval, who, wasn't that highly regarded as a prospect. He had pretty good minor league numbers, a lot of strikeouts in the minors, but it's not like he was some, it's not like he was some amazing dynasty asset before getting called up, but now he looks like,
there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, Scott.
There you go.
If you got an arm and you can throw a baseball, you could turn into a very good fantasy pitcher.
As Patrick Sandoval has. Jonathan
India, I just wonder how valuable the skill set's ever going to be for fantasy, especially in a categories league, I guess, because I don't know if he's ever going to be a high batting average guy. I don't know if he's ever going to be, a big power or big speed guy. That's my concern there. The things that he does well are, one, he's got about an average strikeout rate, which is pretty good, and he gets on base a ton. He's got a 401 OBP, 13% walk rate, and I love this: 17 hit by pitches, most in the National League, second most in baseball, after Ty France, actually, which I didn't get a chance to mention that earlier. But Ty France also loves to get hit by baseballs, so very good skill set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less convinced if this is just a pure ceiling argument. I'm less convinced of the ceiling for India than I am these other four. Brian Reynolds, the one we kind of skipped over. But obviously it's about how much has the stock improved in Dynasty League. And Jonathan India went from being, I don't know, maybe he could develop into something to now he's like instrumental part of the Reds line. His on-base percentage since the start of June is .442. And on-base skills were the main thing he showed in the minors, too. You're getting on base that much, there's going to be a place for you. He's also hit .308 since June, the start of June. High BABIP, so, I'm not sure how much I buy into that either. But since the start of June, so 53 games we're talking about here, 7 home runs, 14 doubles, 5 steals. You roughly triple that to get full season numbers. That comes out to 21 homers, 42 doubles, 15 steals. I think there's definitely something there. And when a player is first breaking in, like the thing I'm least concerned about him underwhelming in is home runs.
Yeah.
Because I think even with the environment changes, that's just a really easy skill to cultivate in today's game. Kind of every system is set up so that, you know, we
as long as you're not Nick Madrigal, you're Miles Straw.
Yeah.
If you're some pop.
If you're showing any kind of power, they can build on that. And so I think I don't put that past India to improve. And you know, I don't know that he's going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to be definitely an asset.
And let's talk about 5 who are losing value. And I'm going to go ahead and guess these are 5 players we've talked about quite a bit. At least the first 3 names certainly are.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really a matter of where are we in Dynasty now with these guys? Cody Bellinger, Glaber Torres, Chris Paddock. And for all 3 of them, I've been holding out hopes basically all year. And it's just to a point now where we're kind of past that. We're kind of past that. You know, Glaber Torres, the interesting parallel for him would be Jose Ramirez, because, you know, he came up, looked great his first 2 years. As he's fallen off here the last 2 years, the underlying numbers don't really present an obvious case for what's wrong with Glaber Torres. He's just totally punchless, though. And remember, Jose Ramirez had like a full calendar year like that, and then suddenly came surging back. So, you know, I guess that could happen with Glaber Torres, but it was just such an unusual situation for Ramirez that it seems unlikely lightning's going to strike twice.
Yeah.
Chris Paddock had like a really great 8-start stretch in the middle of the season where it looked like the spin was back up on his fastball, maybe enough that that he was going to be able to return to his rookie form. But it's just been disastrous over the past couple months. And it's just, I mean, I feel bad that you didn't capitalize him on a rookie season. If you had it, you thought you had this amazing dynasty asset, and now he seems almost valueless. Cody Bellinger, of course, still has value. And
he's the one that I feel most confident in getting back to some level, just because I think he has the best explanation for why he's struggled.
Yeah, I mean,
you
could point to all the injuries, the shoulder surgery. You could point to the self-inflicted mechanical changes that have gone on during this time. Like, you could see how he could come back, but clearly nobody's paying for Cody Bellinger what they would have 3-4 months ago. You know, there's a case to buy low on him, but it doesn't feel like you're for sure going to get the return you're hoping for on that investment.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I'll point out with Glaber Torres, if you're looking for an explanation for why he might be struggling, I think one that could work is in 2019, he hit 28% of his fly balls to the pull side. He hit 41% of his line drives to the pull side. So far this season, let me make sure I have the numbers right. He is hitting 14% of his fly balls to the pull side, 32% of his line drives. So
wait. Are you trying to say that what seems like was the problem for Jose Ramirez, he was adjusting his swing to try and beat the shift, hit more balls the other way? Could that be exactly what's going on for Glaber Torres? This is an analogy even closer than
it might be, but the thing with Ramirez was I'm not sure he actually started pulling the ball less often. I can't remember if that was the case. But if I remember correctly, it was mostly just that he was hitting a lot of weak fly balls to the pull side. Yeah, I guess he did pull the ball slightly less, but it was like 2018 it was 50%, 2019 it was 49, 2020 it was 52. So I don't know if that's quite the explanation, but I think basically if you're looking for a why Glaber Torres isn't hitting for power, it's because he's not hitting the ball in the air with authority to the pull side. He's not someone who has huge raw power, but what he was doing in 2018 and especially 2019 was maximizing the power he had by hitting fly balls in the air to the pull side, which is how you can, you know, it's what Alex Bregman does really well. And that's why he hits for more power than his, you know, kind of raw suggests he should. Whether he can fix that, you know, we've seen no signs of it yet, but hopefully he can.
He's still very young, and that's why you hate to give up on that kind of talent in the Dynasty League. But we've given these guys a lot of leash already.
Yep.
The other two names on this,
Bohm.
Yeah, Kevin Biggio and Alec Bohm are the last two here. And I think Biggio,
man, that's exactly how we thought it was going to.
Right. And he may be playing himself out of a job at this point. He's not adding insult to injury. He's stolen 3 bases this year for as much as he played. So, and I think he only stole like 6 last year. So that isn't even really part of the package from Biggio. I mean, still getting on base at a 317 clip because he walks so much. But yeah, my expectations for Biggio rest of his career are very low. And so I think he has virtually no dynasty value at this point, when again, his first couple years up, you're like, yes, my second base situation is solved forevermore.
And then Bohm, it's actually funny. He's hit the ball with authority. Mm-hmm. He's got a 92 mile per hour average exit velocity, 91st percentile, 88th percentile on hard hit rate. He just isn't hitting the ball in the air.
Yeah, it's not,
and he's striking out a lot.
Yeah. Again, a year we all thought he'd take a step forward, and instead he's mostly taken a step back. It's correctable, obviously, but it's apparent now he's going to be more of a project than we thought he was going to be, and it may be difficult to wait him out in a Dynasty League.
All right. As we close out the show here, we got about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about some of the rest of Monday's action, and one place I think we want to start there is the 5 pitchers who either pitched in a new place after the trade deadline or pitched in a new role in the case of Ranger Suarez. So we'll start with Jesus Luzardo, who I don't know if he's the highest upside pitcher among this group. It's either him or Josiah Gray. But Jesus Luzardo made his Marlins debut against the Mets. 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, 84 pitches, 17 whiffs, including 5 each on his sinker, curveball, and changeup. Averaged 96 miles per hour with the fastball. That was up a little bit from where he was earlier on in the season. Did not have command of his curveball, and especially in that, gave up 2 runs in the second inning. That was an issue for him there. I don't know. I think his curveball is just not good right now, and I think that's the biggest issue with him. I think he may benefit from throwing a 4-seamer instead of a sinker. I don't know, but I think the biggest issue right now is he just doesn't have a feel for the curveball. And, you can only go so far with 2 pitches, especially when the changeup isn't, a Luis Castillo level changeup. But what do you think of Jesus Luzardo?
Yeah, I'm very much buying in a Dynasty League. You'll notice I didn't put him in the fallers. I'm not to that point with him. I think he still needs to be treated like a prospect, basically. Mm-hmm. His last 2 starts at AAA were pretty good. I was encouraged to see him get 17 swinging strikes. His arsenal, all 3 pitches were said to be well developed. So I don't know if he just lost a feel for that curveball or what.
There was some talk of I remember there was talk of, I think he called it like a turkey sub or something. He had this like slow curveball that he was trying to reintroduce. So it did seem like, from reading a couple of reports back in spring training, he didn't really feel like he had the feel for the curveball last season.
Marlins are the best organization at developing pitching, probably, I would say right now. Yeah. So he's in good hands, and I'm a little surprised they called him up so soon. I'm not counting on him doing anything this year, but I still like him long term.
It was nice to see the Fort Lauderdale kids, Jesus Luzardo and Lewis Brinson, give the Marlins a win today. I liked seeing that. Let's talk about Josiah Gray, who made his Nationals debut on Monday. 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 71 pitches. Surprising thing, only 5 swinging strikes from Josiah Gray. He had been, just as you were talking him up yesterday, as the next Jacob deGrom.
Just like that, his swinging strike rate is no longer comparable to Jacob deGrom's. Yeah, it's funny how that works when you get more than 8 innings under your belt. But no, I mean, I don't know what to take away from this start specifically. Obviously, the results were better than the first two, the two he made for the Dodgers. But the underlying numbers not as impressive. It's hard to know what to make of that yet. I think overall, I still feel really good about his upside. The fastball is a high whiff, high spin fastball.
Yep.
And he has both a slider and a curveball that are capable of getting whiffs, at least from what he's shown so far. Yeah, I mean, the whiffs haven't really been there on the changeup, but he does have that pitch, yeah.
Right. That's what I mean. He has a changeup. Yeah. So who would you rather have rest of season, Gray or Luzardo?
Gray.
Okay. If you thought moving to Yankee Stadium would fix Andrew Heaney's home run problems, bad news, guys, because he gave up 4 home runs, only 4 solo home runs in 4 innings against Baltimore. 4 solo home runs led to 4 earned runs, 6 hits, no strikeout, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Andrew Heaney continues to have great walk to strikeout ratio numbers and just great strikeout numbers overall, but he's got a 32.1% ground ball rate, a 17.4% home run to fly ball rate, and it's pretty hard to see how that gets better playing in Yankee Stadium. He's a weird pitcher because he throws a high spin sinker that he throws up in the zone a lot to get whiffs. Obviously, the downside to that is he gives up a lot of home runs, and I'm not sure, the Yankees are pretty good at developing pitchers and figuring out how to get the most out of them. But gosh, I don't know if he's he's probably more than one tweak away. What do you think?
Oh, Heaney, I'm kind of thinking he is what he is right now. I mean, I'm willing to be surprised, but
I could see like a Dylan Bundy situation where he just figures it out.
Well,
goes on a really good run, but
Dylan Bundy went from the AL East to the AL West, which is the best change you can make venue-wise. And Heaney's done just the opposite here, and we see how 4 home runs in his first start at Yankee Stadium.
They were not Yankee Stadium home runs, by the way. All of them traveled at least 383 feet, and he gave up a 408-foot double in this one. So,
it could have been 5 home runs.
Very easily could have been 5. Yeah. Let's move on to what did you see from Ranger Suarez in this one? He made his first start for the Phillies, only threw 33 pitches in 3 innings, only 1 strikeout, but his velocity was up 1.5 mile per hour, up to 95.1, which is, I guess if he knew he was only going to throw 3 innings or 34 pitches, then, he probably didn't have to hold back, but it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure how when he throws more than 33 pitches, how that velocity is going to play. I imagine he'll lose some from his time in relief. But I like Ranger Suarez. His ground ball rate this year is, let me see if I can find it here. His ground ball rate this year is 63.5.
Yeah.
I believe Framber Valdez led the majors last year with like a 61% rate. That was obviously in a short season, and that 61% was a distant first. Yep. 55 is a really high ground ball rate, and Ranger Suarez has that beat by 8 percentage points. All you sticklers out there, see, I got it right. I don't think he's going to be a big bat misser, but that makes up for it. That's how you get around that, and I think Suarez could be a good starter. We'll see, but I like him.
It's worth keeping an eye on as he gets stretched out. And what about Chris Rodriguez? He made his first major league start for the Angels. He had been pitching out of the bullpen earlier in the season. He went 6 innings, gave up 4 runs, 3 earned, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 9 whiffs on 86 pitches. Fastball velocity was down 1.7 miles per hour. From when he was pitching in the bullpen. But what do you think of Chris Rodriguez? Is he someone in, certainly AL only? He's in a rotation, so he deserves to be added. But what about a 15-team league?
I'd be wary of adding him. I'm not sure I've seen enough in terms of skill level to make me think the upside justifies the downside of anybody breaking into that role. So I'd steer clear of him for now. Keep an eye on him. There's some pedigree there for Chris Rodriguez, but
number 4 pitcher prospect for the Angels coming into the season.
Yeah, not really on my radar yet.
All right. Let's talk about, I don't know, were there any other starting pitchers today that you thought were notable? We got a good Chris Flexen start. He seems to, have turned things around. We got a good Jorge Lopez start, but not really. 5 walks, 4 strikeouts.
Elijah Morgan for Cleveland was interesting. 9 strikeouts. 9 strikeouts in 6 innings with 2 earned runs allowed. 13 swinging strikes, pretty evenly distributed between the fastball, slider, and changeup. He entered this start with just a 10.6% swinging strike rate, so it's not like it's not like he had been doing that well, missing bats. So I don't make much of it. It did come against the Blue Jays, right? So good offense.
Yeah.
So that was it was an impressive start from Elijah Morgan. Doesn't really mean anything on its own.
Yeah, put on your radar.
I'd be remiss not to point out Michael Wacha was awful after I hyped him as a 2-start sleeper.
There you
go. That's they're not called sleepers for nothing. They're gonna miss a lot. So, he was going against the Mariners. It could have easily been a no-hitter. It wasn't. It was an 8-hitter in 4 innings, and Michael Wacha is probably not a thing.
Yeah, 2 games. Or 1 game currently in progress. Anthony Descalfane and Taylor Widener had both been pitching well through the first 4 innings, and then things fell apart. Descalfane ended up with 4 earned runs on 7 hits and 4 1/3 with 5 strikeouts and a walk. I still think he's pretty good. I still think, disappointing that he didn't have a good start against the Diamondbacks. You would usually expect that to happen, but, it is what it is. Robbie Ray did walk 3 batters in consecutive starts for the first time since his first 2 starts of the season, which, wow, Robbie Ray, unbelievable. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about there, but, it's worth noting. Tyler Mcgill struggled against the Marlins, but really it was 1 bad inning. He gave up a grand slam to Lewis Brinson, I believe in the second or maybe the first inning. So, things went kind of sideways for him early, but he got back on track. Still think he's an interesting, low-end option. And then some bullpen notes before we take off. Gabe Klobositz and Wander Suero combined to give up 5 runs in the 9th inning in a loss to the Phillies on Monday.
What team do they play for?
The Washington Nationals.
Okay.
So Kyle Finnegan, I believe, had pitched 3 days in a row before that. So that's why he wasn't available. And those guys were trying to close out the win. Emmanuel Clase did get the save in the 10th inning for Cleveland today. Karinchak pitched in the 7th versus the bottom of the order. Kind of seems like a get right situation there. Do you think Karinchak's droppable?
Not. I'd hesitate to do that in a categories league.
All right. Ian Kennedy gave up a 2-run home run with a 5-run lead in this one. That's 2 straight games, giving up a 2-run home run since joining the Phillies.
He did get the save.
I don't understand that the box score says that, but I don't understand how that worked out. Because he entered with a 5-run lead, I believe.
5-run lead? No, was it a 5-run lead? Well, they won by 2 and he gave up 2 runs, so it must have been a
4-run lead. Okay. Still 4-run lead.
Did he come in the middle of the inning with a tying runner on deck? Let's see here.
I think so.
All right. Well, I guess we have reason to doubt he actually got a save then.
Yeah, that was no. He started the inning. So
okay. Yeah. So probably no save for Kennedy. Probably just a glitch there.
Yeah, he's being given credit for a save, but I don't think he actually got that save. And Spencer Patton pitched a perfect inning with 1 strikeout to get the save for Pittsburgh. No. Why did I think Pittsburgh?
For the Rangers.
For the Rangers, thank you.
And he bounced back from a rough outing. Did you mention Dylan Floro's 4-out save?
And Dylan Floro did get a 4-out save. Anthony Bender worked the 7th. I thought there was a chance Bender might be the closer, but given that usage, I think it's Dylan Floro.
Yep.
Let's close out. We got a couple minutes left, so let's close out with some emails. First one, fantasybaseball@cbsi.com if you want to send your emails into the show. First one is from Chris. Not this Chris, although it could have been. Perhaps there might be an obituary episode for all the top pitchers who failed to be worth anything close to their draft position this year between injuries to DeGrom, Bieber, Glasnow, Ian Anderson, Zach Allen. and poor performances like Luis Castillo and other things that have gone wrong. Seems it's been one of the worst years for starting pitchers. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think the actual results, I started going through and looked at it, and like 4 of the top 12 starting pitchers, I think you could probably qualify as busts, but that would be including Jacob deGrom, and I don't think you can actually include him. Nola has been not as good as we hoped. Luis Castillo obviously was really bad to start the season, but on the whole, like Kenta Maeda was a bust, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, the early part of the SP2 range, and actually really just SP2s in general were kind of bad year for number 2 starting pitchers actually in the draft. Brandon Woodruff, awesome. Blake Snell, not. Maeda, Glasnow, unfortunate with the injury to Glasnow. Steven Strasburg.
Well, a lot of the misses were ones that you could reasonably detect concerns for coming in.
Sure. Max Fried, Zach Plesac. So yeah, not a great look for the number 2 pitchers, but overall, I mean, I don't know. My experience has been that my pitching has been really good this season, and I didn't invest much in it, so that might color my perception, but I still think it's been a relatively normal year for starting pitchers. It's not like hitters have been as reliable as usual because, again, I didn't invest much in starting pitcher, and if my roto teams have a strength, it's typically this season been starting pitcher. I've got one 12-team roto league where I have 17 standing points at hitter, and 6 of them have come from stolen base. And I invested more in hitting than pitching in that league. So there have definitely been quite a few high-profile busts and injuries, certainly.
There's just been a ton of injuries in general this year.
Yeah, it's been a bad year for injuries, probably the worst I can remember. I think you can probably put that at least somewhat at the feet of, coming off a shortened season, So, maybe there will be time for a post-mortem on starting pitching and this season in general after the season, usually when post-mortems happen after the mortem. Cooper writes in, he's in a 2-keeper head-to-head points league, and he's lucky enough to have Fernando Tatis, Ronald Acuna, and Shohei Ohtani after keeping both of Tatis and Acuna last year and drafting Ohtani this season. Coming into the season, he assumed that the 2 keepers would be Tatis and Acuna for the foreseeable future. Yeah, they're the 2 best players in fantasy baseball when they're healthy. Do you consider an alternative, especially with Ohtani potentially getting to outfield eligibility? He would need 10 appearances to get there for next season. He's at 6 right now. With 5 weeks to go in the season, he's wondering, as he's trailing first place by 2 games, should he trade Ronald Acuna? He's been offered Jose Altuve, Bryce Harper, and German Marquez for Ronald Acuna and Chris Taylor. Is it worth taking this win now move and sacrificing Acuna since he still has Ohtani? Or is it worth it just hanging on to Acuna and Tatis and hoping the injuries don't limit them next season?
How big of an upgrade is Altuve over Taylor, really?
Of the season, I think it's probably a pretty big upgrade. Probably so far this season, it might not be an upgrade at all.
I do have Altuve as my best second baseman rest of the season. Trey Turner not qualifying there yet.
Yep.
But
Mookie Betts
look, Tatis, Acuna, Ohtani, I suspect they'll all be among the top 6 picks next year, assuming Acuna seems on track to return for opening day, and for that matter, maybe Tatis as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you're going to have Acuna coming off knee surgery and probably Tatis coming off shoulder surgery, even if he doesn't have it during the season. It seems almost certain he'll have it afterwards.
But presuming the reports are good, it's hard to believe they wouldn't be top 5 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't. Part of me still wonders if Ohtani is going to be so bankable year after year. And when you have Acuna and Tatis in a league where you keep 2 players, just don't even think about it. But I don't know. I'm torn on this one. What do you think?
flags fly forever. Jose Altuve, Bryce Harper, and Armand Marquez. I mean, even with Chris Taylor, maybe you think he's a relatively, wash with Jose Altuve. Bryce Harper and Armand Marquez still a pretty significant addition to your team. And if you don't think, Ohtani, if you think Ohtani and Acuna are both top 6 picks next season or top 10, top 12 picks, it seems kind of like a no-brainer for me.
All right.
And we'll close out with one last one. How has Abraham Toro Hernandez's recent hot streak and trade to Seattle affected his standing in the third base rankings for you?
Yeah, he has been hot. He homered the final 2 games with the Astros and the first 2 games with the Mariners. He's playing every day. He's even got, I think, like 4 steals this year in the little bit of time he's played.
Yep.
And of course, the last 2 years in the minors hit well over 300. He doesn't hit the ball very hard, but he doesn't strike out much either.
He is someone that when he got traded to Seattle, there were a lot of reports that like the smart people in baseball front offices love Abraham Toro. I don't know how much that matters, but
I think best case scenario, the Mariners cloned Ty France, at least what Ty France looks to be right now.
Sure.
That's the best case scenario for Toro. I think he goes by Toro normally. I don't know why in our system he's Toro Hernandez. But I don't think he's 12-team material yet. I think he's kind of a low-end flyer in 15-team leagues. I'm very skeptical, I would say. I'm very skeptical, but
top 24 third baseman?
Yeah, probably about in that range, yeah.
All right. Thanks for emailing in. Again, fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. If you made it an hour and 5 minutes into the podcast, you probably already know the email address by now. Thanks for everyone to tune in on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who listens. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review if you like the show on Apple Podcasts, and we'll read your questions if you leave a review. Other than that, we'll back here tomorrow. Closing out podcasts is hard. Nobody tells you that. You always
just say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.